Let's say you've spent months training, saved up a small fortune, and now you're standing at the top of the world. You've climbed Mount Everest, 8,848.86 meters above sea level. You made it. You're on the summit, and you're also standing on an international border. Because the very peak of Mount Everest is shared between two countries, Nepal and China. But how does that even work? Do you need two visas to stand there? What if one country is closed and the other isn't? And didn't China once try to draw a line right across the top? Well, today we're exploring one of the most dramatic and misunderstood borders on Earth. And to be clear, this border, it's literally on top of the Earth. Let's dive into the story of the Everest border, from ancient treaties to modern mountain politics. Mount Everest, called Sagarmatha in Nepali and Komalangma in Tibetan, sits exactly on the border between Nepal and the Tibet Autonomous Region of China. That makes it one of the few places in the world where climbers are literally crossing countries at the highest point on the planet. The southern face of Everest is in Nepal, and the northern face is in Tibet. And for decades, that division has created everything from geopolitical tension to logistical absurdities. Historically, the mountain lay within the territory of the Kingdom of Nepal and the independent region of Tibet. But after China annexed Tibet in 1950, the balance shifted dramatically. By 1960, Nepal and China signed a border treaty recognizing the summit as a shared point. The treaty was a rare example of diplomatic resolution at extreme altitudes. But that wasn't the end of the story. For over 50 years, Nepal and China couldn't even agree on the height of the mountain. Nepal claimed the official elevation was 8,848 meters, based on a 1954 Indian survey that included the snow cap. China said no, the rock base was the real summit, and that was only 8,844.43 meters. In 2005, China measured Everest again, using satellite radar and GPS, still promoting the lower number. Meanwhile, Nepal stuck to the older figure. It wasn't until 2020, after a joint Chinese-Nepali survey involving GPS, ground-penetrating radar, and actual summit teams, that both countries finally agreed on a new official height, 8,848.86 meters. This was a rare moment of cooperation on one of the world's most symbolic places. But while the height may be settled, other controversies are not. Every year, hundreds of climbers apply for permits to reach the top. But here's where things get tricky. The Nepali side and the Chinese side operate almost like different worlds. Nepal's southern route is by far the most popular. It starts at the famed Everest base camp near Lukla, passes through the Khumbu icefall, and follows a route that, while dangerous, has more infrastructure, more Sherpa support, and historically fewer government restrictions. That popularity brings money. Everest permits cost around $11,000 per climber in Nepal, and tourism brings in tens of millions annually. In peak years, over 600 climbers attempt the summit from the Nepalese side. China, by contrast, controls access to the northern route through Tibet. Permits are harder to get, often more expensive, and include restrictions on travel, communication, and even team size. Climbers often require a government liaison officer to accompany expeditions. In 2021, during the COVID-19 pandemic, China temporarily shut down expeditions entirely, while Nepal, despite rising case numbers, kept the mountain open. That led to one of the strangest Everest proposals in history, a separation line at the summit. Chinese officials suggested drawing a physical line in the snow to prevent Chinese and Nepali climbers from mixing at the top, citing COVID fears. While this line never officially appeared, the idea sparked outrage and satire around the world. Still, it symbolized how even the highest point on Earth could be affected by global politics. But the reality is that Everest summit has been treated like a geopolitical chessboard before. In 2008, ahead of the Beijing Olympics, China completely closed the north side to foreign climbers to allow a Chinese team to carry the Olympic torch to the summit. The climb was tightly controlled, and Chinese soldiers were stationed along the route to prevent protests. In response, Nepal placed police in Everest Base Camp to ensure no unauthorized protests occurred during climbing season. That year, climbers on both sides saw restrictions that had little to do with altitude and everything to do with politics. In 2011, Nepal and China signed an agreement to improve coordination for Everest climbers and to prevent illegal border crossings at the summit, especially in light of climbers who had attempted to descend on the opposite side without proper paperwork. China has also been building infrastructure on its side of the mountain, including new paved roads leading to base camp and improved border checkpoints in Tibet. In 2019, China announced plans to build a national park on its side of Everest, aiming to promote environmental awareness and tourism while still controlling access. Meanwhile, Nepal's side remains a blend of commercial tourism and local Sherpa traditions. But it also suffers from overcrowding, trash buildup, and an increasing number of fatalities due to summit traffic jams. In 2019, a viral photo of a long line of climbers waiting just below the summit went global. Many questioned Nepal's decision to issue a record number of permits that year, nearly 400. This led to calls for reform, including better vetting of climbers and stricter safety protocols. And it's not just trash and traffic. The issue of rescue and recovery is a serious one. Helicopter rescues are more feasible from the southern Nepali side, where infrastructure allows for relatively fast response times. But on the Tibetan side, rescues require state permission and often take longer, with less flexibility for emergency evacuations. There have even been cases where climbers caught on the wrong side of the mountain have struggled to get help due to border politics. In some instances, climbers descending on the opposite side have been detained or fined. Climbers have also faced questions from border officials about crossing the summit ridge. Because while the border is invisible, it's still monitored. Some climbers have been fined or interrogated for taking photos with flags from both countries or accidentally descending on the wrong side. At the same time, both Nepal and China have pushed national pride agendas that include Everest. In China, school books refer to Komolangma as a sacred part of Chinese territory. In Nepal, Sagarmatha is a symbol of national identity and tourism power. In 2015, China and Nepal even disagreed on who had the right to lead an international cleanup effort after an earthquake-triggered avalanche swept through base camp. More than 20 people died in that event, making it the deadliest day in Everest history. And yet, for all these disputes, there is cooperation too. In 2020, teams from both countries met at the summit to coordinate elevation measurements and fly their national flags side by side. In 2023, Nepal and China again opened talks about creating a unified climate database to track and monitor summit attempts more efficiently, something that could potentially reduce permit fraud and improve rescue efforts. So what happens if you cross the summit ridge, technically stepping from China into Nepal, or vice versa? Well, technically you've crossed an international border. But in reality, there's no fence, no customs office, and definitely no passport stamp. Still, it's one of the few places on Earth where you can straddle two countries while looking out over the entire Himalaya. Mount Everest is more than just the highest point on Earth. It's a symbol of exploration, ambition, rivalry, and diplomacy. It's a place where human dreams meet geopolitics. So the next time you hear someone say they summited Everest, you might want to ask, which side? And did they have a permit for both? Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments. Would you rather summit from the Nepalese side or the Chinese side? And what other international borders should we cover next? Maybe the Diomede Islands, Bali Hertog, or that Spanish town where the border runs through the front door? Either way, we'll see you in the next one.